So we're going to go through all the four modules: reading, listening, writing, and speaking. I'm going to talk about some do's and don'ts, some best practices to follow during the exam and for the preparation of the exam. All right, Oniva. So let's start with TEF Canada. Before I even get into the details of the exam and every module, let me assure you that just like IELTS and TOEFL, which are the two most renowned exams for testing the English proficiency, TEF Canada and TCF Canada. So they are both French language proficiency exams. So they test your proficiency in French. So even though they might have certain differences, there were more differences before December 2023. Now the exams are much more similar than what they were before 2023 when they changed the TEF Canada. They both are in terms of level of difficulty very, very similar. I will talk about certain differences in speaking and writing module. Now, reading and listening has become extremely similar. In both exams, reading and listening is pretty much 90% or more similar, both in terms of structure, format, difficulty level. The now significant differences are there in speaking and in writing. We are going to discuss them, and then you can take a call if you essentially want to prioritize one over another. But having said that, the two exams are very similar in nature in terms of level of difficulty. And one thing is for sure, that there's no way that if your actual French proficiency level is, let's say, B1 or A2, B1 plus, somewhere between B1 and B2, that you're going to get CLB 7 score just because you chose this exam or this exam. That is not going to happen. I have said this several times, that language exams are not very difficult in nature. Like, the questions are repetitive. Many times the questions for speaking and writing are repeated. They're in the same sector, social, réseaux sociaux, volontariat, same topics keep coming back. So the exams are not difficult. They are not IIT, JEE mains, or so. Then why everyone does not succeed? The reason for that is we have many ways to know what is your French proficiency. Par exemple, quand vous parlez en français, je remarque les prononciations, les fautes de grammaire, les expressions utilisées, le niveau de vocabulaire, plusieurs choses. So many things that we can take into consideration while grading. So it is not just about answering the question. So confidence with which you use complex constructions, the variety of vocabulary might be Ashish Lalwani is a boku. Every three sentence, two boku. Or OC. Mr. Joshi uses lots of OC. Every one sentence OC. At the beginning OC, in the middle OC, at the end OC. So there are so many ways that we can detect what is the proficiency level, what is the comfort level of a student or the person who is giving the exam. So once again, do not waste too much time. If I decide TCF, maybe I have a better chance of getting CLB 7. No. If you do you have the B2 level or not? That is only the thing that is going to determine. And we have historical evidence of so many students who have given exam. Many students take one attempt, two attempts, sometimes they take three attempts to get the CLB 7 score. But we have the evidence that their first attempt was a correct reflection of their level. Like, the result that they got was pretty much closer to what we expected them to take. So, long story short, exams are not difficult. So don't waste too much time into, oh, TF is better than TCF. Oh, and many people also try to find dumps. In English, we call them as dumps. And they probably are available on internet if you want to go for it, especially for reading and listening test. Sometimes it happens, like some of our students clear the exam and they have CLB 11, CLB 10 in reading and listening. And I'm like, huh, that's a shock. And they barely get CLB 7 in speaking and writing. So obviously there are some dumps available. Please don't ask us. Ask me. I'm not into that domain. I'm into more domain of coaching for French. So you can look for them. You can sometimes people say that paragraphs were repeated from Prep My Future, which is the official website of the institute which conducts the exam, CCI Pahi. So they are promoting dumps if that is happening. Again, I don't have the concrete information. I don't go and check the dumps. That's not my job. So that is there. If you want, you can go for it. I would say if you have B2 level, you'll easily clear reading and listening anyway. So why bother? And if you don't have B2 level, then you might as well mug up the dumps and get CLB 10 in reading and listening. But in speaking, you will get 5, writing 4. So why bother? unless you unless you get all CLB 7 in all 4, you're not going to get significant benefit of immigration anyway. So that's the story. Let's go to the exam and let's dissect each and every individual module. So first, let's start with reading exam. Compréhension écrite. We call it as compréhension écrite, CE. Reading exam, again, whatever discussion I'm going to do today, this is based on the new format, which was introduced in December 2023. So this is 1 hour exam. Earlier, there used to be 50 questions. Now there are only 40 MCQs. Okay? So you have to answer 40 MCQs in 1 hour. Previous iteration, because they had 50 questions, it was a bit of a difficulty in managing the time because a lot of questions had to be answered, all the options had to be read. Now they have reduced it to 40, so that's a good news. So they have made it a little bit easier time management wise. So time management isn't anymore a challenge when it comes to reading test. However, unfortunately, they have done something which I did not like about TCF. That is, earlier in TEF, they used to have different kinds of questions. Like they used to have 6 paragraphs, if I remember correctly, 6 paragraphs starting from slightly smaller or less complex to then bigger and more complex. Total 6 to 7 paragraphs they used to have. And then they used to have questions like ordering the sentences to form a good paragraph. They used to have sentences of synonyms. They used to have sentences of fill in the blanks. So they used to have uh, questions with pictures. So they used to have questions of different types in TEF before, right? Not just paragraphs. Now, unfortunately, I'll open the exam for you in a moment. Now, unfortunately, you do have some questions, but then 9 paragraphs, and I think at least 60% of the questions are paragraph based now. So that variety and that different types of questions without paragraph have gone down significantly. So all those 10 questions that they got rid of, all of them were of the non-paragraph style. So the non-paragraph style questions were easier to answer. I would not say necessarily easier, but it's a bit of a difficult job to read a paragraph or text of, let's say, 25 lines. You don't understand, you have to have patience, you have to have concentration, and then find answer. If it was like arranging the question, arranging the sentence to form a meaningful paragraph, you could just really look at the connectors, right? If they have used enfant, au début, tout d'abord, then you can arrange the questions. It will arrange the sentence. It was easier job. So now that is gone. So what I realized, so I actually took the reading test today afternoon, just before coming to this class, just to have that fresh perspective of what kind of problems can happen. So even though I was able to finish the test in 40 minutes because I live in France now for a while. One thing I realized was the paragraphs came back to back. Like after question number 21, I'll just show you the example. That's an easier way to visualize. So as you can see, first question, I think first question is easy, small announcement, and then you have to do the question, then small announcement, do the question, and then again small thing, easy to read, not so much of text. I think this continues till so the first 7 question was based on small advertisements or small pictures. After that, there was fill in the blank. Like you had a question or sentence and missing link. By the way, this was not attempted test. I just clicked it just to complete the test. So don't worry if my question was correct or wrong answer. So this is a fill in the blanks. You have to fill in the blank with the appropriate word, which is pretty much a test of your vocabulary. This is still, I wouldn't say always easy, but at least, you don't have to concentrate for a long time. Now here again, they start the small paragraphs and you have to put the fill in the blank with the correct answer. So we are in question number 14. Same goes to question number 15. 16 also the same. The paragraph has changed. 17 also the same. 18 is easier, I would say. Some sort of question, you have to select the proper hotel. So again, deductive, still deductive. So this one is the one that is corresponding to a professional request, that somebody asked to look for an email of certain person, yeah, to look for his file or something. That's why it was Kuriel number 3. Again, still deductive. Again, similar question with deduction. 21, again deduction. 22, again a graph, so deduction. Now, here is where they start the paragraphs. So the first 22 questions out of 40 questions are deductive. Like you have to look at the image or a graph or some short text and you have to deduce. It's more like deduce. You don't have to read everything. So it's more deduction. So that's not a bad idea, right? 22 out of 40 is almost how much? It's 50, more than 50% questions are deductive, which is good. The only challenge that I faced for giving the reading exam is that after question number 23, even though the paragraphs or the texts are shorter in the beginning and much easier to understand, from question number 23 till question number 40, you have non-stop paragraphs. You just have paragraph after paragraph, and as you can see, in the end, paragraphs are quite long. Not they're pretty long and pretty difficult to understand. So my only fear is that after question number 22, like starting question number 23, we are talking about 18 questions in total. You are looking at 9 texts, not even paragraphs, 9 big texts. Not all of them are big, but 9 texts consecutively for 18 questions, which is a lot of text reading, right? And you can't really deduce it. You can't just say, look for signature like we did in the earlier attempt, or something. No, you really have to read them. Sometimes the questions are about summarizing the whole thing, whole text, and you have to choose the correct option. Sometimes there's some hidden answer. Sometimes the options are a bit confusing. So you have to really read between the lines. And as I said, at the beginning, the texts are small. Like, for example, 23, 24 is a small one. Then I think 25 gets a bit bigger, bit more difficult to understand. Maybe if you go here, it's going to be a bit more complicated. If you go here, it's going to be a bit longer, bit more complicated. If you go here, it's going to be much more longer, much more complicated to understand. That's how it goes. On and all, if you have intermediate level proficiency in French, I don't see any problem in passing the reading test. So, long story short, my only concern about reading test is that it became monotonous after question number 22. Too many paragraphs. 9 is a lot. Even though at the beginning they are short, after 5 or 6 of them, I was like, not another long text. I don't want to read. So I discussed this problem with another student who recently gave the exam. And what I would suggest is that you definitely complete the first 22 questions because they are more deductive, right? Good chance is that if you have CLB 7, you'll get 18 to 20 correct out of 22, which is a good beginning. Half done. Now, to avoid the monotonous nature of reading 9 texts back to back, it is possible to jump questions in the reading test. It is possible to go from question number 22 to 28 either by clicking next, 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 or via the map. Okay, if there's a map. So one way or another, and time is not a problem anymore. What I observed when I gave the test today is that time is not a problem. 1 hour is more or less more than good enough for the 40 questions. Because simply speaking, 22 of them are deduction based. So you can say you can finish them in 20 minutes. And then rest of the 40 minutes you can spend on the 18 questions based on the 9 texts, right? So time management was a challenge before because there used to have 50 questions. Now that's not a challenge anymore. So what I would suggest thus is you mix it up. You fix the first 12 questions, answer them 12 to 14. Then you go and do couple of paragraphs or couple of texts, at least 2 3. Then you come back, and finish question number 15 to 22, and then you go back and finish the rest of the paragraphs. I would recommend this so that your concentration levels are maintained throughout the exam and you give best possible answers. So what do you think? Is it a good idea, you think, to do some deduction based, then go and do 2 3 paragraphs, come back and change up a little bit, do some more deduction based, go back and do more paragraphs? How does that sound?
Yes, it sounds
Yes.
fair. I
Yeah.
mean, good strategy.
Now again, remember there are 9 texts, 9 back to back, from question number 23 till question number 40. Initial texts are short and easier to understand. 6 7 lines, easier to. I'll show you, right? Where is that 23 question number? Yeah, question number 23, right? So initial text you can see is small and easy to understand. Many more bullet points, and maybe the language is more difficult. Then bullet points are gone again, slightly longer. Then it looks boring. This looks boring. Just by the look of it, it looks boring. It's much harder to read. And oh my God, the length has increased dramatically now. So you also keep this in mind that when you are planning that switch, maybe you want to take care of some longer paragraphs earlier when your mind is still fresh. Makes sense, Ruchi? When your concentration levels are
Yes,
still high and you're not that tired, you want to take care of this longer paragraph so that you can focus. But first and foremost, please make sure that you answer at least 14 15 questions of the first, because those are your sure shot questions. So you don't want to do the worst thing, that you spend all your energy in this big paragraphs, which where you're gonna make mistakes anyway, and then you're so tired and so bored that you go back to the easy questions at the end and you miss them also. So don't do that. So take care of your 14 15 questions first, so you have some confidence, and then form a strategy. I'm not going to advise for one fixed strategy for everyone. Maybe some of you are like Gautam Buddha's avatar, you have Zen concentration, then go for the linear model. Question number 1 to question number 40. Some of you can do a lot of switches, some of you can do one switch only. So I will let that decision up to you. And if you're going to do that, try out whenever you are taking exam simulations, try out your strategy. Okay, don't go to the exam day and say, you know what, I'm going to experiment today in the exam. Don't do that. Whatever strategy you're going to make, try that out before in the simulation and see how it works for you, if it yields any result or not. And that is precisely what exam simulations are for. But anyway, to be honest, if you ask me, reading test has been made little bit simpler than before. Less number of questions, so time management issues have pretty much disappeared. And if you have the B2 level in French, this exam should not be difficult to crack. Only thing to think about is the monotony of 9 texts back to back. So if you can fix that part or overcome that part, you are good. Any questions for the reading test?
And is there a way to mark and keep the answers that you're not sure you want to revisit or something?
When I gave the exam back in 2020 or 2019 December, whenever that was, there used to be, but I'm not sure anymore. So again, the softwares keep on changing every now and then, but I'm not sure. Maybe what we can do, we are going to have a session with 2 of our students who recently passed the exam with CLB 7 and more. So they will come for a session. You can ask these questions there because they know more. They have more recent knowledge of the software in the exam center.
The questions are based on difficulty levels. So, like approximately how many questions should we aim that, okay, this many questions we need to be correct at, and like, is there a number to it?
Definitely don't have this. Don't do this. 2 correct and 38 incorrect. They never made public the schema, the marking schema, exact marking schema. Some of their websites, they say that each question carries the same weightage. But that is essentially not true, because the scores that you receive are in odd numbers. 439, 437. It's not mathematically possible to have odd number scores if every question carries an equal weightage. So definitely that is not true. but they like to write that. I don't know why. It makes sense, to be honest, that difficulty level, each question will carry different weightage based on difficulty level. That makes sense. Otherwise, imagine if there were 40 questions with equal weightage, right? Then what some Kaustubh stupid Joshi will do is that his level is B1. So he'll answer all the 22 for 24 question. Let's say he gets 20 correct. And he puts the tukka or the guesses for the rest 20. Even out of 20, his 10 guesses are correct. The guy gets CLB 7. So I am pretty sure that every question does not carry the same weightage. And that has been demonstrated in the results, even though officially they have not declared what is the exact marking scheme. Based on the historical evidence, I would say, so you should get 32 plus out of 40 correct. That should be your aim. And that should pretty much guarantee you CLB 7 according to historical estimates. It's not a, I would say, 100% concrete answer, but that's a good place to be, 32 plus correct. And I don't think that's that much difficult, considering the fact that 22 questions are deduction based. So, you get 18, 19 out of those, and then out of the remaining 18, even if you get 60% correct, you're good.
And negative won't be there, right?
No, there's no negative marking. As I said, reading is the easiest of all 4 tests. So let's move on. Let's go to the more difficult ones.